The fastest moving hour in radio, the Lawrence County Republican Party radio show. And across the table from me, I have again Mr. Lawrence Sutton. He is the secretary of the Lawrence County Republican Party. And my name is Brandon Taylor. I'm the chairman of the Lawrence County Republican Party. And also, we've got a couple of power hitters in the room tonight. We have, across the table from me, we have Mr. Page Walley, Tennessee State Senator from District 26, and also we have our Tennessee State Senator from District 28, Mr. Joey Hensley. Welcome, gentlemen, to the Lawrence County Republican Party show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having us.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Glad to be here, Brandon.
Yeah, we love the fact that you guys are here.
This is the first time we've actually had a chance to get Mr. Page Walley in. We've had you on the phone a couple of times, Page, but we've not been able to get you in studio, so we're glad the schedule worked out. And Joey was able to be here as well. Of course, we love you, Joey. Appreciate everything you do for Lawrence County back years ago, and we're a great state senator for Lawrence County. And Paige, now you've stepped in, and we've been working with you, and appreciate what you've been doing lately, with really stepping up at the special session that we had and got you guys in. So tell us a little bit about what's going on in the Senate. We should be able to get a pretty well-rounded answer on what's going on in the Tennessee State Senate here tonight.
Well, certainly, first of all, Brandon, I'd like to say thank you for those kind words, but it was my honor and privilege to represent Lawrence County for 20 years in the House and then in the Senate. And as everybody knows, we redistrict every 10 years, and so the district got changed, and so Page has Lawrence County now. But I still feel like that I represent Lawrence County, and I'm always here to help with any issues, and certainly Page and I share a lot of bills and legislation and things that affect Lawrence County and affect the other counties surrounding here as well.
Thank you. And Paige, you're no newcomer to Lawrence County. You know your way around this place pretty well.
Well, I do. I had the privilege of being able to follow Joey here, and obviously he set the bar mighty high. And I've been for the past year just trying to get to know folks. And obviously when we officially made the change in November of last year, got real eager to get around to all of our community centers like West End, where you and Lawrence wear another hat down there, and Henryville, and I'm trying to remember all of them that I've been to down there at West Point.
West Point.
They got a bunch of them.
Right.
Yeah.
But I tell you, I've eaten a lot of breakfast, and it's been mighty good. So I go around.
Lawrence County will feed you.
Yes.
Hey, if you leave Lawrence County hungry, it's your fault.
Wait till next year when we start doing all the catfish fries when the political season starts back again.
I'm already on to that scene too in Hardin County. They do one a month over there. But I'm trying to compare the chocolate gravy and see who's got the best of these community centers.
Well, fair enough. Fair enough. And Lawrence Sutton, glad you're here. Appreciate all the hard work you put into these shows, and you're behind the scenes. You're doing a lot, and I see it. And I just want to say thank you for what you do and sacrifice your time with your family and being here. So, gentlemen, without further ado, the special session. I mean, we had you on last week, Paige. You had a few minutes to talk about it. But, I mean, what, in your view, success, failure, pass, what do you think on the special session?
Well, Joey and I think we're in agreement. We thought that it was not necessary for the governor to call us into special session. Those were issues that could have been handled in the regular session. It'll start back up in January. But given he has that authority, we made the decision early on that we were going to only act on the legislation that he sent to us. So there were probably 6 bills. I think he ended up withdrawing one of them. So out of 5, the Senate ended up acting on 3 bills and the appropriations bill.
Right.
Joey is the vice chair of our finance committee. I'm on finance, so we acted on that, and that was all we were going to do because, it just wasn't right in our mind for citizens to not get the opportunity to have the long look at proposed legislation and its impact, and to have testimony that's needed, to have just the process that works well during regular session. Our friends on the other side in the House were trying to do a lot more, but the Senate kind of quietly and but I think consistently just held firm that we were going to honor our commitment to folks, that we were going to get in, do our business quickly, and shut it down and get home.
And you guys did that wonderfully too, because before, the talk was among a lot of us. I'm not going to say all, but a lot of us. Before the special session, we were more worried about the Senate than we were the House.
Yes.
And you guys totally shut it down. I mean, I will tell you that none of us wanted it, the special session, and when we had some of the Democrats in the middle of the special session and they're tweeting out, would we please shut it down because this is worse? I'm like, that right there is a win at that point. And I tell you, I'm very pleased because anytime there's any talk about stepping on our Constitution, it bothers me. A lot of things, that you guys can vote on and other legislators can vote on. We can argue about, back and forth. But to me, when we are talking about a red flag law, then we're talking about stepping on the Constitution. And I'm going to tell you, thank you so much for what both of y'all did, because I know you guys worked really hard behind the scenes for that.
We were thrilled when the Senate said we're done and we're going home. I think you sent me the text message, really early on, said we're finished, we're out. And again, Lawrence and I, we talked to a lot of people and they said, well, the Senate, they're the ones you're going to have to be concerned about during a special session. And so you guys proved everyone wrong on that.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to say everyone was wrong on that one.
Well, there were several of us in the Senate, Paige and I included, that just let the Speaker know that we just want to do these 3 bills that the governor has. We don't want to deal with these other bills because bills deserve to be studied, to deserve to have pros and cons.
Exactly.
People come and testify, witness, especially some of these bills the House had were very significant policy-changing bills, and they'll all wait until January, but we just felt like that we didn't really need the special session. It gave Democrats and other people the opportunity to be there and to protest about things that we weren't going to change, and we certainly weren't going to pass any red flag laws. We're not going to pass any gun control laws. So we did 3 things, and y'all probably already talked about them, but took the sales tax off of gun safes and made gun locks free, and had TBI do a report about human trafficking, and did one about clerks reporting when people are convicted of crimes, make it seamlessly and 72 hours requiring them to report, and then put money in the budget trying to help help our higher education institutions, and one of them close to Lawrence County, certainly UT Southern, who needed some money to help with their safety at the school, and so put money in the budget to help higher education, put some more money in for SROs in some of the schools that were left out of charter schools and some of the other public schools, and then put money in there for mental health and trying to get more mental health providers into the rural areas. So there were some good things done, but we just wanted to get in, get out, and then we can get back in January and bring up these bills that are so important to the state of Tennessee.
And I think something else you mentioned, Lawrence, I think is interesting to me, just the dynamics that people saw that came up there. And I want to thank all the Lawrence Countyans and folks from our adjacent counties, too, that made the trip up there 2 weeks in a row to participate in their government, in their Senate. I kind of like to joke that the House is like a kindergarten and the Senate's like a nursing home.
Yeah, that's a pretty funny joke.
We kind of handle things that way, So all the drama you hear about and you see about on the nightly news from Nashville is about all the rambunctiousness in the House. On the Senate side, our Speaker did a tremendous job in keeping order. The folks in the balcony were, for the most part, very civil and well-mannered. They had their signs, but they kept them low and not in other people's faces. And even on the last day, as we were going through the closing remarks before we shut it down, one of the Democratic senators from Memphis stood up and complimented Lieutenant Governor McNally on just the decorum with which he conducted the whole special session. So it was a very different vibe over there.
Absolutely.
We sat in on a couple of the Senate's when you guys were debating the bills, the committees, and I noticed that even the Democrats there were very, very civil. I think there was one lady, I guess, from the Memphis area just had a baby, and
London Lamar.
She seemed very level-headed, very, nice, for lack of a better word, and it's
holding her baby in her arms while she was there.
That's right. I mean, very refreshing to see how you guys conducted your business.
Well, and I think, one of the things that I take a lot of pride in, I know Joey does too on the Senate side, is that we talked about upholding the Constitution, and one of the things we value is our First Amendment. And people are going to get a chance to speak their piece, but when they do it, the expectation is they're going to do it in a civil manner. They're not going to be denigrating folks. They're not going to be operating outside the rules with bullhorns and disruption. And they do that, and they recognize that.
So bringing up the Constitution, then there's one thing I think really needs to be taken care of, and that's long guns. We're one of only 4 states that cannot have a loaded long gun in this country, in New York, Florida, New Jersey, and then you got Washington, D.C. And when you're behind California, Hawaii, Connecticut, Massachusetts about being able to carry long guns, I know that there was a bill that was up there before the shooting, and then things after the shooting, it kind of died down. But what do you guys see happening with that bill to get a true carry for the state of Tennessee?
Well, I was talking to John Stevens today, who's Joey works closely with on finance, and he was the sponsor of that long gun bill. And in the Judiciary Committee in the Senate where it was being heard, he was telling me that they just didn't have the votes to pass it. So what they did, they amended it to making our statutes consistent with what federal courts say now is constitutional carry for 18 to 21-year-olds, which is you can carry, concealed or openly.
Right.
And so that's what the legislation does now. He just didn't have the votes in the committee. And so where the bill sits now is when we come back in January, it's sitting in our finance committee where Joey and I serve, and it's in the form right now of having the constitutional carry for 18 to 21-year-olds, just making sure that we put that in statute, even though the courts would find that. And the Department of Safety already issues, background check clearances for those. So it's already in effect, but this would just, make it statute consistent with practice.
Well, I know that we had Are you done on that topic, Lawrence?
Well, no, because we went to about the handguns, but there was nothing mentioned about the long guns. Because if you look at what's happening with the Supreme Court right now, with Heller and especially Bruin, long guns need to. I mean, we just cannot be one of 4 states in this union not to be able to carry a long gun.
Most people are not even aware that's a law. They're not. Most people that live here, they're just. I mean, they don't even think about it because a lot of folks that we know are they carry a firearm. They even have carry permits, things like that.
Probably nobody tries to enforce it either.
Don't think about it, and we will bring that up though in the next session. Also, another issue will be all of the gun-free zones that we have in the state.
Yes,
I think we need to do something about that. I had a bill about college campuses, allowing people on a college campus to carry because now they can't.
Right.
So there's still a lot of places in the state where we have gun-free zones. That's where most of the shootings occur.
98%, actually.
We need to do something about those areas, and I think we will slowly get some of those things done. But sometimes you have to take things a step at a time.
Right.
And one of our colleagues, Senator Frank Nicely from up in Upper East Tennessee, he spoke as well on that last day about that very point about gun-free zones. He said they're a myth. The only people that honor gun-free zones are law-abiding citizens.
That's very true.
And he said, you know what? If I would have been there that day, he's talking about himself, if I would have been there that day at the campus, at the shooting at Covenant School, and I would have taken my gun out and shot that woman dead, he said, I would have been guilty of 2 felonies.
Wow.
That right there is my whole point. And we tend to make jokes, especially people that are really behind the Constitution and we say this all the time. We would rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And unfortunately, Joey, I'm going to tell you something. That's awesome if you guys can get that done, because I'm going to tell you what happens with me. I honor the law when I can. And what I mean by that is if I see a place that has no gun zone, I just don't go in that place. And you know what? I'm going to tell you something. If something went down, I think you would want me in there if something happened, because typically I have my kids with me, and I mean you're going to have to go through a lot to get to my children, and that I think that's really commendable. I hope you guys can get that done.
And you're on the education committee, Joey.
Yes,
So
yes.
is that part, if any type of, and I'm asking a question because I really don't know exactly how this is going to come down, but when we start talking about schools and possibility of firearms being in schools to whatever degree that is that going to come through the education committee?
Yes, it will. And generally bills like that come through education and judiciary. So
Gotcha.
sometimes bills go through two committees. But guns on school campuses are a big area of discussion. A lot of us think teachers should be able to carry a gun if they're trained to. Now it does take special training, not just any teacher
Absolutely.
carrying a
Sure.
gun. But it takes special training, and only teachers that want to do it. A teacher doesn't have to do it,
Right.
but if they go through similar training to training SROs get, and they want to do it, if they're and there was a bill this year that passed through the House about former military, former law enforcement,
Right.
and teachers with training be able to carry a gun, and they can do it now on college campuses. College professors can carry a gun on a college campus. And on private school campuses, they can have a policy to allow teachers to carry a gun on a private school.
Right.
And we tried to change that because now it's only K through 12 private schools, not pre-K through 12.
Okay.
So I actually had a bill with Representative Gino Bolso from Williamson County trying to allow pre-K through 12 to set their own policy. And they can set a policy to allow their teachers and administration to have a gun. And I think Coventry School did have some people at that school that did normally have a gun, but I don't think they were there that day.
Right.
So schools are a prime example of gun-free zones. We've done a lot to make them safer. We put a lot of money into the schools. We put money so that every school can have an SRO. Except for Nashville, who turned
Sure.
away $5.3 million because
Ridiculous.
they claim that they couldn't get them, but they will eventually have them. So, but put money into the budget so that schools can get grants to help with physically make the schools safer, gun-free coverings on the windows and doors, more video cameras, only having one entry into the school. So there's a lot of things schools can do to make them more, to make them safer. So hopefully schools will do that. But if a criminal knows somebody might have a gun in a school,
They ain't going to go there.
or anywhere, they're going to go somewhere else.
Well, I made a suggestion, and I've talked about it with a couple of our. I won't call their names, but I've talked to a couple of people in our county already about this suggestion that I have. We have extra spare police vehicles. Maybe they're high mileage. Some are just setting because they've not been utilized wherever they're going to go or sold or whatever. One of my suggestions, I'm all about optics. I would love to see every SRO officer get those extra vehicles, because I think if you pulled up into a school and you saw 2 police vehicles sitting in the parking lot,
You'd think twice, wouldn't you?
it's optics of it's a 2-for-1. In most school shootings, I know not all, there's Columbine, there's different ones that have happened where it was multiple shooters going into schools. But I know that if you pull up into a parking lot and you see 2 police patrol cars sitting there, to me, that just says more than likely there's more than one police officer inside the building. I would like to see them get those extra police vehicles. I know they may strip the radios out of them or do things to go ahead and take them out of their full capacity, but if they're just going to be setting and they're a little bit higher mileage, why not put them in the schools just for optics of security? And people might think I'm ridiculous on that, but optics work.
Yeah, well, it's something
It does,
that,
yes.
something that I would think is not prohibited, from a sheriff's department, city police, from
Right.
gifting those or selling them or loaning them, to the education department for that purpose.
Well, if the ones I've talked to, there's extra vehicles setting
Right, yes.
somewhere in most counties,
There are.
and they're just trying to move them on at some
Yeah.
point in time. They're always cycling them through. So that's a suggestion. Another thing I would like to see is I would like to see some legislation to help with our school bus situations and help harden those school buses up. I'll say that. I'm not hearing anything. I even spoke directly to Speaker of the House Cameron Sexton on the issue, and he said he had not seen any legislation to help harden the school buses at all. So that's just something that I'll put out there, and I'm going to be talking that up more, and because I just see it as
that's
a soft
good
target.
point. Yes.
So and he said he had seen nothing in along that lines. But thank you guys for what you've been doing. We really appreciate it. Let me say, while people may be watching online, go ahead and hit the like button. Even if you don't like it, you'll learn to like it. Hit the like button. We appreciate that.
Something they can like.
Yeah,
about
send it to a liberal. They may learn something, or they may not talk to you anymore. But so if you send a Democrat this video and they never speak to you again, was it worth it? So that's just the way it is. So we're gonna have a little fun in here tonight. But appreciate you guys being here, and it is sensitive topics, but this is going to be coming up. These topics about firearms in school,
Right,
hardening the schools. This is not going away.
No, it'll not
going away.
And we're going to have to take it head on. And we need to have open conversations about it. What works, what doesn't work. I'm as pro Second Amendment as anyone you're going to meet, but not every idea is a good idea.
That's right.
There are better ideas.
It's not.
And so let's bring ideas to the table and let's figure out what we're going to do to actually harden the schools, because I hate to say this. I mean, I hate to say this out loud, but I think we're going to have a problem with school shootings until a school shooter is killed as soon as they walk into the door. When we start having a school shooter walk into the halls and they're a visible threat right there, and they are terminated right there in the hallways of the schools, it's an unsuccessful event. I think school shootings will go away. I think we're going to have to deal with those issues, but I think you'll see that absolutely decrease in number.
And I think you're going to see a lot coming up about just public safety and crime in general, and,
Right, yes.
and flipping the script away from focusing on law-abiding gun owners to criminals who are using guns in the commission of crimes. And that's where we're soft around Tennessee. The federal government has minimum mandatory prison time for using a firearm in the commission of a crime. We don't. It can be an exacerbating factor, but it's not in and of itself a crime, and we can do that. I know that we've had some conversations about that,
Sure.
And how it looks in some other states, and it works. I had a sheriff's deputy, a retired sheriff's deputy from Shelby County, who also worked in the Marshal Service, and he told me, he said, "I'll guarantee you that these thugs will do anything to keep from being accused of a federal crime when they've used a gun, because they know it's 5 years.
Sure.
If it's at state, it can be pleaded down, dropped, whatever, particularly with some of our soft DAs and some of our urban areas."
Absolutely. And you see a lot of people who are criminal or repeat offenders, they know the laws as well as some
do.
lawyers.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
it's
do.
jokingly said, but some of them don't even want to represent themselves in court because they learn what the laws are. They learn the loopholes, and they work around things if they can. Shifting gears just a little bit, I know this special session was about mental health, but I didn't see much concerning mental health brought up. It went straight to firearms is where it went to, is what I'd seen. Coming up in this next session, mental health, what do you guys see is going to be coming out of it? Because I feel like there's going to be legislation that's going to come out of this next session involving mental health in the state of Tennessee.
Well, we did put money into the budget for mental health. Of course, Paige is the mental health expert. He's a psychologist. But trying to help with mental health, and mental health is a big issue, but a lot of the crime, I think, is just evil. There's just people in this world that are evil.
I agree.
That have no concern for human life. And those people, I don't think, are so much mentally ill as they're just evil.
It's a sin issue.
And all the things that we're dealing with the kids on the phones, computers, and all the things that people access nowadays, they get hardened to really human life, and too many of them are playing video games
Right.
and killing people on the computer, and they just become hardened to real human life. So I don't know what you do about that, but certainly we will be doing things about making mental health more available.
That brings up a point. We took God out of school.
We did.
1963, and it seems like we have just gone forward with the morality falling even more and more, to where really and truly I think we've gotten to the point where it talks about in Isaiah where good will be called evil and evil will be called good.
And people want what will tickle their ears. People want to hear what reinforces their belief that I am my master. I'm on the throne. Right. And like Joey said, we've got folks that are hate-filled and evil.
Yes.
It was interesting. I commented while we were in special session, the shooting down in Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. It was the media. The left-wing media was really quick.
Sent that to me.
Really quick to say, this guy, this was a racist, hate-filled, neo-Nazi. They didn't say guns killed these people. They said a hateful person did. Now, they would flip the script if it was someone, that looked differently.
Sure.
But I'll say that, and there's a great difference between evil and hate and some people that have some legitimate mental illnesses. Right here, Centerstone, the Community Mental Health Center, covers Lawrence County. I think several of our others that are adjacent to us. They struggle to hire and retain workers. So what Joey was mentioning, the money that was put in the budget at the request of the Commissioner of Mental Health and Substance Abuse, Marie Williams, was to try to provide incentives to attract and to retain those staff at those community mental health centers. I know that we are going to be doing, I'm sure we're going to be doing more next year, because one of the things we learn every year, at least I do, is that we have, when you squeeze a balloon somewhere, it pops out somewhere else. We had trouble recruiting correctional officers a couple years ago. We increased compensation.
Right.
We've gotten our prisons pretty well staffed now. We had trouble with K through 12 teachers. We increased the minimum starting salaries. I think effective next year or the year after. The mental health workers. One of the challenges I've learned about was that we got hospital beds for them at our, Moccasin Bend in Chattanooga or Western Mental Health in Bolivar and other places, but we didn't have people to staff the beds. And so, Sheriff Myers might take a person who has been found to be mentally ill and a danger to themselves or others over to a hospital in Nashville or Chattanooga, but be turned right around, told to bring them home because they don't have bed space for them. And then you bring them home, you put them in your county jail. They're not equipped.
That's right.
And our county jails are full
they are.
of people with mental illness.
Yes,
and they'll tell you, you talk to any of them, they're having to provide these medications and, try to manage these folks. And we need to take care of that and take the pressure off of our county jails and our county taxpayers, because this should be something else that we're doing.
What, with both of you experience in the medical field, and I'm going to tell you something, you got two experts here. We got a doctor, we got a psychologist. Why
they can write you all kinds of prescriptions.
I wouldn't take them.
We might get Lawrence. What we need to do is we need to get Lawrence over here to be a test subject.
There you go.
And we'll see how
subject.
Let's see how the Senate works here.
I'm going to tell you something. You talk about test subject. It reminds me of the COVID vaccine shots. I seen this cartoon that had two rats on there, and the one rat looked at the other rat and says, "Are you going to take the COVID vaccine?" And the other rat says, "No, I'm waiting for the human trials to be over."
That's about right.
It's about right. But what I brought up, though, is you guys, I have seen, so I know you have seen it, a huge increase in mental drugs being prescribed compared to what it was 10 or even 20 years ago. Why do you guys think that is? What is causing this huge rise in prescription drugs being prescribed for mental illness? Or are you even seeing that?
Well, part of it, I think, is it's just more available, more people having issues, and they think taking a pill is going to solve their problem rather than fixing their family problems or their issues at home. More depression in society, and the drug companies, too, are producing more and more different medications and different drugs, and people are mixing them together, and not even talking about substance abuse, but just people taking mental drugs, and they are in more society, and some of these drugs do increase somebody's pendant for suicide or to harm somebody, or takes away some of the inhibitions people have.
You read the side effects of these. I know Joey knows a lot more about that than I do with these medications, and it'll scare you to death.
That's right.
Right.
And I think he's exactly right. We have become a society that looks for instant results on whatever it is.
Absolutely.
I want to drive through the McDonald's and I want my food now.
Instant gratification.
I want to text with my friend now. I want a pill that fixes me now. I don't want to do the hard work to figure out why am I depressed, why am I anxious, why am I having trouble with my spouse. I want someone to prescribe me something that just makes me feel better, and then I don't have to do the work. You know, in my mind, we have some wonderful medications that a person like Joey could prescribe, but it's supposed to hopefully give you an opportunity to catch your breath. And when we explore, now, how did you get into this situation?
Right.
What do we need to do to change, how you behave, how you think, how you respond, learn some new skills, those kind of things.
So, and so what we're seeing that maybe could have been intended for temporary use has become lifelong.
Right.
So,
It becomes lifelong and long-term.
And I've got some experience in volunteering with drug recovery, and most of what we see in drug recovery is people who are self-medicating. And they'll turn to a legal substance. They'll do whatever they have to do, and they're self-medicating because of different psychosis issues that they have. And so I don't know. I feel like there's some of this has to be all tied in together at some point. I'm not sure where Tennessee stands with other states as far as how we handle and what the laws are regulating. I haven't done that research, but it seems, and I would agree with you, Paige, it seems like we're not serving those who need mental health care. We're not serving those like we should in the state of Tennessee. That's my opinion on it, from what I've seen from drug recovery programs.
And it's interesting to me, too, that I have a son who is a mental health counselor in the county school system in Upper East Tennessee.
Okay.
And he talks to me regularly about what he's seeing, the abuse and neglect some of these kids experience, the bullying, and these things at young ages. And if we can't get to deal with them then, it's just like we dealt this year with third grade reading readiness. We know that's an important issue.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, there are these things, if you got a kid that's getting bullied and bullied and bullied, and no one's doing anything about it, it's not surprising that someone comes and shoots up a school one day.
Right.
And I tell you that I sit here and I think about the bullying and everything. I mean, we all saw and experienced bullying when we were growing up in school. The problem is that you can't take care of it. Back then, if somebody gave me some problems, I took them outside and we duked it out and we fought. We didn't sit there and we take it. We didn't let it bottle up. We just went and took care of it right then and there. And I'm seeing a lot of that happening. I mean, I'd get in a fight, I got in a fight all the time, especially in elementary and middle school. I'd go in, principal would look at me, take out the paddle, and he'd say, okay, 3 whacks on the butt or an hour of, in-school suspension. I'd go, give me the 3 whacks, or not in school, but, detention after school.
Right.
And I'm like, man, 3 whacks on my rear end. I mean, 3 seconds compared to an hour. Yeah, give me.
And he was no idiot. He'd been in that high school for 6 years. But,
you said the quiet part out loud.
On the bullying part, though, years ago, a few years, just not even that long ago, if you had bullying going on at school, when you left school, the bullying would stop. But now with social media, with Facebook, with all these TikTok and everything else that's going on, they don't get a break from it. It's constant. When they go home, they're still being bullied. And I think that's having a far-reaching, more negative impact on kids nowadays than it did whenever we. Because it's more broad. I mean, it's not just 4 or 5 kids on the bus. Now it's everyone at school sees your bullying going on.
And you know what? It's real simple. You know how you take care of that? Don't let your children have access to that stuff. I mean, my girls didn't have access to it. I finally, at 16, would let my son get an Instagram account. But then I monitored it. I mean, I had access to his account at any time. And me personally, I've never had any social media.
One of my sons today approached me about a video game. Okay, he's 9 years old, and he approached me about a video game that he had. So we're always, my wife and I, we're always, going to approve of whatever it is. And this stuff is marketed to children. It's stuff that's never going to come across your viewfinder and our age bracket being adults. And so he was like, "What do you think about this video game?" And literally, the video game was, I don't even know the name of it. And there's so many of them out there that are like this, but it was where you literally have a firearm in your hand and you're going door to door, and it was more of maybe a military style setting on the video game. I don't know the name of it, but I told him no. I said, I don't want you playing a video game where you're all day. We don't want to play all day, but when you get a chance to play a video game, you're not going to sit here and practice shooting people with a gun
with no consequences. No consequences
whatsoever.
Even if you get shot, then all of a sudden you're coming back. You're back alive again, and there's no consequences.
And God knows, I don't want more government regulation. I don't. Right. But at some point,
it needs to be parents.
Just scoring, and I don't know if they're going to do it. I don't know if parents are going to do it. But just scoring a video game to be Y7 or teen or adult, I'm not so sure that it's working. I don't know at what point we have accountability on these video games and these manufacturers, because this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and I do believe it's having an impact. Listen, you guys grew up in this area. I mean, Joey, we grew up in the same area.
That's right. Yes.
I'm going to say this out loud, again, the quiet part out loud. When I went to school, almost every guy in the parking lot had a shotgun in the truck.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's not a far-fetched idea. We went deer hunting after school. I mean, I sold a teacher. This is crazy what I'm about to tell you. I graduated in 1996, so we're not going back. My kids say I grew up in the 1900s, but
you did.
I did grow up in the 1900s, and I wrote that kid out of the wheel, so I took care of that problem. But I'm kidding. But the thing about it is we would go deer hunting or we would hunt after school, and it was not a big deal. I sold a teacher. And, Joey, I could call their name. You would know this teacher, okay? This is funny. But I sold a teacher a PSE bow, a compound bow, at school when I was in school. And, carried it into school, sold him the bow, and then it had broadheads with it. Now, all the other teachers were like, wow, look, that's a good-looking bow. It was not a big deal.
You couldn't do that now.
Yeah.
Imagine
you
that.
Get away with that now.
It would be.
But did we have school shootings then?
What was the difference when Christopher Columbus set foot on the shores as he come over to he had guns on the ship.
Sure.
But the only thing different we have now is we have a lot of screen time. I'm sitting in front of you now. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 4 screens in front of me here, 5 if you count that laptop there she's using. But it's you have a lot of screen time. Guns have never been the issue. The issue has to lie within somewhere else. And so I'm just putting that out there. I don't think getting rid of firearms is going to ever make this country safer.
Well, it won't have any impact in that respect. No. But getting rid of God did have an impact.
Absolutely.
It had a huge impact.
Getting rid of discipline, getting rid of corporal punishment in some schools and homes, I think made a difference. I was scared to death of my principal, and he had a paddle, and I'd take the after-school suspension. He was big and mean, and I didn't want any part of him.
Mine was too. Mine was a big man.
And so much of it is the home lives now of children.
Right.
Don't have parents at home teaching them and taking care of them, and they bring it to school, and the teachers have to deal with all these children that don't have parents at home. They care about them, and they're just on the phones and the computers, and the teachers can't discipline students. And we actually passed, Representative Spicky and I had a bill a couple years ago trying to make it so that teachers could discipline students, and the principal had to send the students somewhere else rather than sending them back to the classroom. So many times the teachers are dealing with 1 or 2 students, and they can't teach the rest of the class, and they try to discipline them, and they can't. The principal send them back, or the parents complain. The parents sue the school.
Absolutely.
And so it's just so different than it was when we grew up. But
when we carried
how you deal with that. But then we don't want a lot of government intrusion either. But we want to see what we can do, and so debating these issues and what's the best policy for our state is what we need to do.
And there's some, I think there's some hopeful things out there, and I'll give you one. I was last night with a young man. I say younger than me, I'll put it like that. He might have been that young. Yeah. Maybe not as good looking, but younger. But anyway, he told me his story. He was He had grown up in a home where his father was in prison. The guy he thought was his father got shot and killed in the neighborhood. He grew up in the projects. He got into gangs, into selling drugs, went to prison for 5 years, but had a salvation experience, an aha moment in prison, got out, started a company where he does like janitorial, cleaning services, turned it into multi-million-dollar business. He's the only person in America that has been pardoned by the governor, here it was Haslam, and by President Trump.
Wow.
Only person that's been pardoned by a governor and a president. And he was telling me he's now turned this, and he's going into communities. He's coming to Shelby County. He's coming into Fayette County, which is in our district.
Sure.
And we have a Wilder Youth Development Center there, which is one of our state's juvenile detention centers, to do some work there, because he knows, and I know, and you know, that the disintegration of families, and he's an African-American gentleman, so, disintegration of the African-American family,
Sure.
In all families for that matter.
That's right.
I mean, it's devastating. I tell people regularly, Lawrence, I said, Satan's good at what he does. And if you were going to have a plan, how do I really bring down communities and cultures and, here's what I'd do. I'd start saying, hey, it's no big deal to have, children out of wedlock. It's no big deal not to have a father in the home.
It's not that it's a big deal. It's that they actually reward them financially for not having the father in the home.
We don't need to elevate, two-parent families. We don't need to reward that, certainly. And on and on and on. You could not plot it any better to destroy, our communities as we have allowed to happen with that, with drugs and a variety of things. And so, but this guy, he lived it, and he said, I'm going to go in and we're going to do some work with, bringing these boys and, young families some hope here. So anyway, it encouraged me.
Well, family is the building block of any society. Right. Doesn't matter what culture it is, doesn't matter what continent it's on. If you don't have family, you don't have that building block, that society will crumble. So I'm going to shift gears just a little bit if I can, because I want to get to this topic, and I'm telling you, this is a fast-moving hour. I want to talk about school choice. And I know it's a hot topic, and I think it's going to heat up. And so let me set the stage for why I want to talk about it. Lawrence County is poised to be a very fast-growing county in the next coming maybe decade to 20 years. We see a lot of businesses looking closely at Lawrence County. We see businesses actually moving here, manufacturers coming here right now. We're in process of that, as I'm sure you're aware. So what we have is we're looking at our school systems, and we're looking at the fact we're going to be building schools in the near future. Our schools in Lawrence County, I believe there's 14 if I'm correct, they are at capacity. They're full. So when this growth kicks off, we are literally going to start building schools. And so I'm saying this on behalf of a lot of people that I talk to in Lawrence County. We're going to be building schools for people that don't even live here yet. And as we've seen in Murray County, which I lived there for a while, we see when you see county taxes go up, you see people in Mount Pleasant paying a higher tax rate to build a school in Spring Hill.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it's unbalanced. It's very unbalanced. And so we've seen the impact fees failed. And I'll say this out loud. I'll say more of the quiet part out loud. The reason those impact fees fail, and you already know this, and we'll say it for our listeners, is because the realtors and contractors and the lobbyists in the state of Tennessee held the feet to the fire and would not allow these impact fees to pass. Now I've heard arguments on both sides.
We're working on something else, trying to bring that back. Because
that's
you're right.
what I want to hear. I want to hear something good about this.
Yeah, because we had 800. We got 800 jobs coming in here, so which means we're going to have minimum probably of 800 children, which means we're going to have to build a school. That school's going to run probably $30-40 million to build. Those 800 jobs,
70 or 80 million.
Yeah,
okay, I'm going to go low but even 800 jobs is not going to pay for that school. Who's going to pay for it? We are. And I'll give you a perfect example of that. When I graduated high school in Florida in Lakeland, we had 15,000 people. There's now over 100,000 people. I still have a house in Florida. My taxes since 2004 have more than tripled. in taxes. Now, we're living here. My taxes here in Tennessee haven't gone up but maybe 5%.
Right.
Since I moved here in 2011. And that's, I'm going to tell you, that's a concern of mine, that I'm the one that's going to be on the hook, that's going to have to be paying these huge taxes for these jobs that aren't going to pay. These jobs are not going to pay for that school.
And so the thing with school choice would be, and this is so I'm voicing to you guys.
Yeah, we're
so
thinking outside the box here.
And this is the discussion that you're talking about, Paige. I feel like we've got to have this discussion. The point that I'm trying to make, Lawrence and we've talked about it off air many times, is if we had school choice, if we had a voucher program, I know other governors have tried this. It's just not really caught traction. It seems to be, when I talk to different senators and I talk to different representatives, if you talk to 10, you're going to get 12 different answers on it. It's really scattered. Right. But if we could get something to where the voucher program would allow parents to be able to put their kids in a private school or some sort of charter schools. Charter schools, that's a hot mess as well right now in the state of Tennessee.
Right.
But if we could get ahead of this, it's my opinion that I believe a lot of schools would start up in Lawrence County and other counties. I know of at least 3 pastors that have told me they have successful churches and relatively large churches comparable for the area. They would start schools, and they would be able to actually have kids in these private schools. And I'm all for the state testing. I'm not trying to do anything outside the, exclude it to where we're not actually educating the kids. But this would do 2 things. And you guys are conservative, very conservative guys sitting at the table. Number one, I think it would help hold our school systems accountable. And I'm proud of what our school systems are in Lawrence County. I'm thrilled for what Lawrence County's doing. But we've got to hold the school systems accountable. And I think it would help us as far as having to build new structures, new buildings, new facilities, and campuses. I think it would help slow down this impact of what we're having in growth. What say you guys?
Well, certainly, charter schools are public schools, so they're not involved in the voucher program. And the voucher program we have now involves 3 counties: Davidson, Shelby, and Hamilton County just got added last year. Mm-hmm. And each student generates so much money, and they are able to take that money to private schools. It's still in its infancy. It has a limited number of students, 5,000 students the first year, and it'll go up to, I believe, 20,000 total students in those counties. And we are seeing more people after the pandemic and all the kids staying home. A lot of parents are homeschooling now, and homeschooling don't get anything from the government. Sure. I certainly think people that homeschool ought to at least get a tax credit or something, because they're saving the state the cost of educating their child. And we are seeing growth, and you're getting into the funding of the schools, which is up to the county governments. And we had a bill last year about impact fees that would allow counties to implement impact fees on new construction, because now counties can't do that. Most cities can do it. They can do impact fees, but the schools are the responsibility of the counties.
Right.
And so when you have a lot of growth in the county, like Murray County, Rutherford County, Lawrence County, you're seeing a lot of growth, and you are seeing more need for more schools. Murray County needs 2 or 3 more new schools now, and they just built 2. So they're seeing growth. So we are trying to make it so that people coming in to the counties and new growth are paying more for the schools. But that's different than the choice and whether you have a voucher program for the whole state, because we would have to have sufficient private schools for people to use those vouchers.
Sure.
Just because you have a voucher, if you don't have a good school to go to, it doesn't really help you any. So there's a lot of education issues that we need to discuss: how to fund the schools, holding them accountable with this 3rd grade reading law that we passed a couple years ago, trying to make sure that 3rd graders can read proficiently on grade level. So all those issues are important for us to discuss, and we will be looking at those and seeing how the voucher program works in these 3 counties, and then I'm sure in the future it will be expanded to other counties. But the counties do have to have good private schools, and there are some in the area. Certainly Murray County has several excellent private schools, and we should help those parents at a minimum if they're sending their child to a private school, they should receive some kind of help.
Well, I can tell you this, speaking of someone that homeschools my children, I homeschool my twins and then my son even. I don't want anything from the federal government. I don't want any voucher. I don't want any tax break, and I'll tell you why. Because when the feds get involved, you're going to do it their way. And right now, I have the freedom to teach my children like I want them to be taught, and I don't have to.
Right.
I don't have to teach what is being shoved down our throats.
Yeah. I was going to mention, Joey had a bill a couple of years ago that I supported in our state and local government committee on impact fees.
Right.
And we're trying to find a way
Yes.
to do that, to address some of what you're
Right.
talking about. That should be the responsibility of the folks moving in with their home building,
Right.
not left on the backs of every property taxpayer in the county. I'll give you my position right now on vouchers, and I'm listening, but I have not been a supporter of it.
Sure.
And here's what I've told people that are, is that if you can do these things, I believe I can get on board. I've told this to the proponents of it, and I've told this to folks that are opponents. They said, yeah, we could agree to that if, first of all, that if you have a voucher, that any private school is going to have a no eject, no reject policy. I can't come cherry pick the best students
Right.
out of the public schools. I
Right.
can't pick the athletes. I can't pick those that don't have disabilities or special needs. I can't do that. So if you'll do that, if you'll say, all right, if I apply to your school, you got to take me. Granted, I know there's some admission issues. Well, that was one. The second one is that voucher is going to serve as payment in full for that education. You're not going to say, well, that voucher's worth $7,000.
Yeah, it's about
it costs
$7,000
$10,000 here.
Right.
Sorry, you got to come up with the other three. No, if you're going to take vouchers, that voucher is going to pay for that education. So if you can do those couple of things, I can go with it. But I don't want the cherry picking because that then leaves the public schools with, the folks that have special needs that we're putting additional funding in for all kinds of particular special needs. I don't mean special needs just being disability,
I understand.
but long distance to travel on school
Right.
buses,
Rural areas,
rural
smaller.
areas, just all kinds of criteria. But we don't want, because most of the counties that I represent, and with the exception of Murray, probably what Joey represents, are very rural.
Right.
And we got one public school system, don't have private schools very often. It might be a church school, a small church school or two.
Yeah.
I said, but if you'll do that, because I know one of the reasons the TSSAA, divided out private schools into categories because they were cherry picking, and taking the best athletes and giving them scholarships, and it wasn't fair. You level the playing field.
You know what?
Everybody plays by the same rules.
I'm surprised people would have pushbacks on that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have pushback on it.
I think the pushback's going to be from your private schools, is because, especially if you get into academics, they're going to have entry tests. Okay, so they're gonna have entry tests, and maybe they have 50 positions, 50 spots open in a school. So because that's per what they have with staffing for teachers. So then you would have maybe 200 students test, and they're going to pick the top 50 of those testing. So you're saying that would be something you would be.
I'd like to find as level as we can be. And here's another thing I don't want. I don't want you to take the voucher in the school, and then the kid misbehave and say, well, we can't handle you. We're expelling you. Well, the county's got to take them then.
Sure.
But they don't get the money back.
Right.
And so there's those complexities that are just.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, I would like to see they would get the voucher payment once the child completes that year of school. I would like to see that because you got to hold the private schools accountable as well. Now, I know that we're in a rural area and you don't see that many private schools here, but I want to tell you, you go talk to any of these small private schools, and I'm telling you, their tuition is not $7,000 per year. Most of the ones in these rural, they're smaller, smaller little areas. They're doing this for ones I've looked at from $2,000 to $5,000, $6,000. Yeah. So if you were to go in and you took a few minutes and you actually looked at the schools that would be willing to open up and get started at that price, you'd see a jump in the schools. I know we're about to run out of time.
No, Charlotte gave us 5 more minutes.
We got 5 more minutes. You're awesome, Charlotte. Thank you so much. But what I just wanted to touch on that because I feel like it's going to be an issue that's going to be coming up because Tennessee is one of the fastest. You guys already know this. It's one of the fastest growing states in the United States. The work I do with my profession, Atlas Moving Company moves more people to the state of Tennessee than any other state in the United States for the last few years.
And U-Haul has the one-way rentals here. I think the most of any state.
That's
too.
exactly right. So
they're all getting out of California.
We've got to start thinking.
That's right.
We've got to change the way we think. And I say this to a lot of people because I'm deal with a lot of people in the Republican Party, deal with a lot of folks that are elected officials, and we appreciate everything that's going on. But a lot of times, and you guys know this, you hear people say, well, I remember how it used to be. We're not going back to that. We're not going to retroact things. We've got to start looking from this point forward, what's the best path forward? And we may have to come up outside the box as we're talking about having these discussions. And I appreciate you guys being willing to actually do that on air because we've got to find some solutions.
Right.
We cannot pass this expense of a county growing onto the taxpayers here. And we're about to get caught in it in Lawrence County. It's about to happen.
We are, but I'm going to tell you something. You know, so many times, and I'm guilty of this. I'll be the first one to admit I'm guilty of this.
You're guilty of a lot.
It's a knee-jerk reaction. But what you said about the school vouchers makes perfect sense because I'm the same way. I mean, I want it as a level playing field. And again, I have no skin in this game. I mean, none. You know, with me homeschooling, we feel like that we can, with my wife's education and everything, we can give them the best schooling than sending them to school. But that made perfect sense, and I just can't picture why people wouldn't get behind that.
And public school officials I've talked to get behind it. They said, if you'll just let us have a level playing field, we'll do it.
So you're not getting pushback then from that?
Not from the public school.
Well,
Really?
and we already spend more on education than any other topic in the state.
Right.
Education, K through 12 education, and higher education, that is the most money that the state spends on anything else.
And
so we try to make education, and we're trying to make education better and the students better educated so we have a better workforce, and all of that plays into us having a good education system. And these and the vouchers and the charter schools and all those things and the private schools and the homeschooling all fit into that puzzle.
Absolutely. And we're not even taking federal money this year, are we, for the schooling? Is that something I heard about that?
Yes, no. We're taking about $1.1 billion from the federal government.
There was a conversation from the House side about not taking it.
Right.
It was just
not
that.
to. But we spend about $15 billion on education. And about $1 billion comes from the federal government, roughly.
I wanted to, I know we're running out of time, but I did want to just, first of all, thank all of you,
Thank you.
Charlotte, Brandon, Lawrence, for having me on and letting me join Joey on the show, and for the privilege of being the state senator now from Lawrence County. I'm just so honored. And I wanted to mention, I'm having an annual event that I wanted to invite everybody to. It's a free event at Pickwick State Park just over in Hardin County on October the 7th. That's a Saturday.
Okay.
Balls aren't playing that day, so nobody has to miss the ball game. It'll be from like 5 until 8:30.
Okay.
We call it a Bayou Fest. We've got gator, catfish, shrimp, all this a Cajun band that's going to be there, and it's going to be a fun whoop-de-doo. Free of charge. It's not a political event. Everybody's welcome. You don't have to be a card carrying anything. You just come.
Okay.
I tell you what, that's awesome. With all that food you mentioned, Joey, I'm going to need some medicine for the gout. Okay, I mean, I need to set up an appointment to see you because that's a gout attack waiting to happen.
So absolutely, October 7th. That's going to be at the Pickwick Lodge.
At the Pickwick Lodge,
at 5 o'clock. Joey, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you, Brandon.
God bless you guys for what you're doing. We really appreciate it. The door's always open here. Use this venue, WDXE, doing what they're doing, getting conservative talk out there. We appreciate this radio station. I want to say thanks to the Lawrence County Republican Party for everything they do. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Blessings on y'all. Thank you.
Thank goodness you made that decision. To those people in Pittsburgh that said, "Oh, he'll be back," Diamond Dave, I see you. I'm still here, Daddy.
I wonder what was on SportsCenter 24 years ago today.